All right, welcome to the More Movement Arts Show. Today we are interviewing Greg Schneider. He is a friend of mine that I've known and I've run into at many of the areas here in the events in the Bay Area. And he is a Krav Maga expert. He was in former a security specialist or still in security specialization. We'll let him tell you. So Greg, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. I super appreciate it as having a high level expert like you in this field. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't always like referring to myself as an expert because I think we're all learning. We're all learning. No one's an expert really in anything. We're just learning. You can never stop learning.
Sure. First, you have to clear that up, but I'll just say that everybody says that, right?
So. Okay. So I am a security management consultant and tactical response trainer. So that is how I identify myself. And I've been involved in the security world, if you will, for quite a long time, going back a couple decades.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did you get into it?
Sure. Well, just out of college, criminal justice major, and I was an athlete in college, and I should say practitioner of Tang Soo Do way back when, a Korean martial art. Upon graduating college, I had a search for adventure, and I moved over to Israel and became a citizen of the country and was thereby drafted into the Israeli Defense Forces in a combat infantry unit, during which I got my real first introduction to Krav Maga as a soldier. Through my military service, I was then selected for an executive protection unit or detail and learned more or different skills or different approaches of Krav Maga than as a soldier.
Nice.
And during my time in Israel, I also worked on the side as a trainer because being an American in Israel and a collegiate athlete, I leveraged that to get some fitness jobs between details or deployments, if you will. And from there, I moved forward with different opportunities in America in the security space, but always kept training close to my heart. Training in terms of just for myself and the professions I worked in. I always had to be tactically fit, but also I wanted to, I guess, pay it forward, if you will, and I got some certifications on fitness and learned much about fitness and directing it towards those in the security world. And by security world, I should say first responders, military, police, fire. Those are that's my niche market of delivering what I do now.
Nice. So talking about your story and your transition, because what I want to do is clear up a lot of like how people think of things like martial arts or combat fitness training. So with your transition, when you went from being a sport athlete, right, and then you go into Tang Soo Do, or did you do Tang Soo Do first?
Yeah, that was first.
Okay, and then you went into Krav Maga. So how did that transition? What was the main difference between Tang Soo Do and Krav Maga, and how did it serve you in athletics and those sorts of things?
Okay, well, with Tang Soo Do, and I would even say with any martial art, when you learn as a teenager, it does give you great discipline and beyond just the physical aspects of it, and understanding and confidence in handling situations if something should ever arise. And just I took that discipline with me as an athlete too, in college. I guess some of the seeds were planted at a younger age. And of course, any military is known for discipline if you're a good soldier. And there, though, as a soldier, it's someone's always telling you what to do, and I just got to do it pretty much in the beginning.
So you would say it made you very trainable
Yeah.
and very hardworking, and seeing, I guess, the value of your hard work pay off, right? Just learning to be good at things, right?
Oh yes, I mean that is in a sense the result, because in a military unit it's a little different than just being an individual, where as an individual, yes, you want to develop your self-confidence and the ability you can handle situations. But as part of a unit, I mean, there are others that are really relying on you. So Krav Maga training in the military, gives one that tactical skill set, but also it helps with bonding with your fellow soldiers.
Oh, that's cool. So the Krav Maga was helping, I guess, break down barriers between you guys and learning how to work with people and that kind of thing as well.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah. Yes. I mean that's a purpose of it, but every soldier has to go through some form of Krav, if you will. In terms of breaking down barriers, yeah, it's more for unit cohesion, but also so you know how to retain your weapon if you're doing a patrol, those kind of things. The application of Krav Maga does differ from soldier to, like, as I was saying, as an executive protection agent, different application, and by that also different combatives. And I had other positions as an investigator in New York City, where again, the application of combatives is there more on apprehension versus just knocking someone down, creating distance and running. And then there's the civilian application, which is even further developed in a way. So it has been quite the circuit, if you will, in terms of my journey in Krav Maga.
Nice. Yeah. I didn't think of that in terms of the purpose can vary widely, whether or not you're protecting yourself or you're protecting another, or if you're just trying to apprehend and control somebody. I could see that drastically changing the tactics and those sort of things. And I've worked with people in the security field and police officers, private security, and I could see a lot of that is just distance yourself from the attacker or subdue them, and just kind of stall or not do as much, just keep things cool, and then wait for backup or somebody to come and take this person away and that kind of thing.
Yeah, if I could, I'll break it down real quick. So
Sure.
As a soldier, if I have to deploy Krav Maga, someone's coming at me or my unit, it could be a knife or a weapon or something, or it's about creating distance. And honestly, that person's going to get shot because we're talking soldiers that are armed. It's about creating that distance. Sometimes there could be an apprehension, sometimes, but not often. As executive protection agent, it's about creating that distance, quickly incapacitating the attacker, but then taking the principal, who's the protectee, and escaping. I don't care if that attacker goes to jail or not, or apprehended. That's not my concern. The concern is getting as much distance from the threat.
Nice.
And then as a investigator in a law enforcement role, apprehension. Okay, so the moves and tactics I'm going to use as a soldier or something else may not be as blunt as investigator, because okay, it's someone trying to run or push, and I'm not going to stomp their head in, for that.
Right.
I apprehend them in a different way. And then of course, when it comes to training civilians, there's even more rules. Okay, so less. And actually, that's the interesting thing with Krav Maga and the civilian application. It's a much bigger playbook, if you will. So though some of the techniques might not be as blunt and violent, there are more of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because like it's one thing if someone grabs me, I'm a soldier, and they have an intention to attack me, I can shoot them.
Right.
If I'm I can push them down and shoot them. But if as a civilian and it's someone's grabbing me here, I'm not going to go all the way. I'm just ending
Your
the threat.
escalation, you can't escalate very quickly. You have to like moderate that escalation to what you're being faced with. That's what I learned as a bouncer was like, you can't just haul off on somebody and punch them, even if they're punching somebody else. Like, you're a protector and you're there to like keep people protected. And even though they may be aggressive towards you or whatever, you can't use a level of force that's beyond what you're being shown with somebody else.
Exactly.
But if it's war or, combat or street fighting, legality of street fighting and those kind of things. But, escalation is much quicker. And with Krav Maga, the main thing the differentiating factors of, like different martial arts, some are based on striking, some are based on grappling. Krav Maga is a mixture of both, where you're escalating the threat, or you're going kind of up to poking eyes and striking the throat and going for the kill, more so than sport martial arts like Taekwondo or Jiu-Jitsu, where it's more meant for competitive compassion. Right.
It's completely different. Where inside the ring and octagon, you have your ring and octagon awareness. Out in the street, situational awareness. Heads on a swivel. Yeah, you have maybe one adversary. You have to look around. Does that person have a friend or two or something? Where do you escape from? All those things. So it's a different animal completely. And again, in the ring, it's sport. There's up to a certain point, there's strikes that are considered illegal. Like if someone's on their knees in the octagon, you can't knee them in the chin or something like that. In the street, real world situations, different.
Right. Much more compassionate and more controlled and more restricted, obviously, right? If you're comparing what I'm used to is mixed martial arts to the Krav Maga, but how many other different styles would you say are comparable to Krav Maga that would be on par with those type of principles as far as like street defense and soldiers?
There are others out there. I know there's a lot of people get on a high horse with their style, like almost like the old 1970s kung fu movies, and like Southern praying mantis. No, praying mantis. I'm not. There's a lot of elements that go into things like the mindset. That's the one thing about Krav Maga, is the mindset. It's training your mindset and your instincts and understanding timing and distance, as do other martial arts. So there's like Sistema is a type of way of redirecting, maybe similar to Aikido, but you have and you look at even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in terms of the application of controlling someone, and really good at. And one of the things, and unique to this area in the greater San Jose area, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA are so popular, even in Krav Maga, which is a lot of striking, well, and you have to know your ground game too, because the chances there could be an aggressor that has a BJJ background. And now what are you going to do? How are you going to identify what they're going for? They're shooting, and how do you, having a ground game, but also getting up on your feet as fast as possible, or preventing yourself from getting down to the ground, all that.
Yeah, it's especially with because different martial arts are typically formed by the rules of their sport, right? And so, if like, for example, Taekwondo, no grabbing, Jiu-Jitsu, no hitting, and then so that kind of forms the different styles and the different techniques that you can perform within there. But when you're talking about Krav Maga and you're saying no rules, no whatsoever, dude might have a sword or whatever it is, right? You got to be prepared for anything. So this might have any type of threat. And so it's kind of like more of all around situational variety, right? Rather than just being focused on one specific aspect.
Yeah, that's correct.
Similar to like mixed martial arts, where you can say, I mean, obviously there's rules within that, and there's certain things that will never come up, like multiple attackers or anything like that. But so like mixed martial arts being less restricted in the rules, so more able to borrow from techniques of other, or creating new techniques and those kind of things. So more freedom, but at that same time, when you have more freedom, there's more things that you have to prepare for. Right. So you'll have more people that, so for example, in wrestling, people will get very, very good at specific types of attacks. And so you'll have mastery over takedowns or jiu-jitsu and those type of things. But if like what I had when I trained at AKA, I taught the MMA class, and there would be a lot of people that didn't have a background in any type of training, right? Striking or martial arts. And then they would want to come in and do sparring and like punch and kick and take down and jiu-jitsu, like submissions at the same time. How does Krav Maga go about making sure that people achieve, have that balance between kind of not mastering, but getting good enough at a skill and then moving on to the next skill to be more well-rounded?
Right. Well, here's the thing. No one owns Krav Maga. And there's so many different organizations out there. There's different schools out there. Some have a belt system, so some don't have a belt system. And each have their own curriculum and how they develop those skill sets. So much is on the shoulders of that head instructor and the maybe particular organization he or she has aligned themselves with. Technically, just for all the viewers out there, the only two Krav Maga organizations that are real true authorities are those that are managed by the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli police. So what I'm saying is, someone on the civilian side could come up with their own Krav Maga this or that and create their own content, and that's fine. And then they run with it. So
doesn't mean it's wrong, but it hasn't been approved by the Israelis.
Right. But even so, that's just within the IDF and Israeli police is just within Israel. It's their curriculum. This is what they have to abide by. There. Now, it could be a veteran, it could be a chief instructor of the IDF in Krav Maga, as many have, and they come out on the civilian side and open up their own thing, and that's fine. They have created their own curriculum. But in terms of organizations on the private and civilian side, there's a lot of folks out there. So it's just important to research.
Nice.
Where they initially received their training. And it could be, I've known great Krav Maga instructors that never served in IDF or the police. They were civilians their whole lives, and they were excellent practitioners and instructors.
Nice.
So
it's one of those things about martial arts and, training techniques, like which is the best way to make the best athletes? What's the best way to defend yourself? How do you know which is best? And a lot of, before MMA came along, a lot of different martial arts styles were getting away with some extraordinary claims of working a little bit too well, right? Like I don't even have to touch the guy and he falls down. But like, you would need to have those battle-tested people who have been in at least not battle-tested people, but people that have been proven to either get people ready for battle or coming from an authority like the Israeli authorities you mentioned, which I forget the names specifically, but
Yes.
how would you be able to tell whether somebody was, say you see them teaching something you've never seen before? What would be a telltale sign that they're teaching a technique that isn't the best?
Well, I've seen applications of instructors teaching things that aren't so. I would say, it's more of the realism and what's considered realistic, and like the punching and the striking, and like we pull punches, so it's about developing accuracy. And let's say in the case of punching, I've seen, not necessarily with Krav, but in other combatives where, okay, we're going to throw a punch at our full force, but we're not going to target the person right in the nose there. We're going to hit to the side of them. Like, what are you training there?
Power.
Right.
Power.
Power. And it's like, what? Oh, it's accuracy, right?
No, power.
Right.
We were talking about the other day, who was it? Maybe it was UFC or something, and he just said straight up, jiu-jitsu is bullshit. And, he didn't have any. And we were talking that, he's a striker, and he won't spend any time doing jiu-jitsu, but his training camp was probably full of kicking with more power,
right,
punching with more speed, and those kind of things, not focused on either placement, right? And obviously not focused on jiu-jitsu or the other aspects that could bring,
and I've seen also good Krav practitioners and facilities, and they focus so much on the ground, where they'll do 15 minutes of just grappling, whereas in the spirit of Krav, even if you're practicing a ground work, it always involves an escape, an attack, a counterattack, and getting out every time. Okay, it's not we're gonna grapple, and we just play. No, it's you're starting here, rear or headlock, or whatever it is, or choke on the ground, or someone's in guard or whatever. You get out of that situation, boom, boom, you run, whatever it is, you get out, you run, you scan, you run, you escape. And then it's like the other person's turn. I mean, everything is developed so the muscle memory is about getting yourself out of that situation and going. You're not there just to continue grappling. I mean, what if you do for yourself and you just stick around, someone can grab you, pull you back down. Or you run, you go. So it's with that purpose. And that's where I see that perhaps that difference, the differentiator between really good combative type schools and those that are, don't focus on it, I should say.
So you would say, for the most part, it's the overall intention or overall goal of what they're, focusing on in general, that would alert you to, maybe this isn't the best guy to train with, because what he's focusing on isn't safety and escape. It's more of staying in there and
you're right,
out, as you say, right?
I mean, doing grappling for the sake of grappling, it's okay if that is, you're doing a grappling class, okay. But if you're learning self-defense, different scenario there.
Yep. I teach a self-defense course, and it's not anything that I'm claiming to be an expert in, but there are certain tactics, and they're very general, and it's like, for the most part, it's about evasion, staying away, staying safe, and not avoiding the engagement, and those sort of things. Because I had a wrestling coach, and we'd always ask him, how do you get out of the cradle? And he's like, don't get into the cradle.
There you go.
We're always asking him, like, how do you get out of the headlock? How do you get out of these final finishing moves? And he was always like, well, let's talk about how to prevent it first. Because if you spend most of your time in prevention and you get good at it, then that prevents you from being in a dire situation in any situation, right?
In terms of like what's considered when I was a security supervisor for an airline, if an attacker made it onto an airplane, and though we would have an air marshal there that could, let's say, save the day, so to speak, such a thing would still be considered a failure because someone, penetrated the system in a way, penetrated the screening process and got through all these layers of security. And yes, they were tackled and everything was safe, but that's still a failure. So there's much to be said about prevention. Because so when like prevention fails, and yes, you need those skill sets to save the day, if you will. But it's always a learning process. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have all the preventative measures. Something happened, then okay, it maybe wasn't catastrophic, and you go back and you look and see, okay, how could we have done this better? How could we have prevented this from happening in the first place? And that's something applied in the security world for sure. But for people that find themselves in situations where, they be it in a self-defense situation or something, like what could they have done after the fact? Well, maybe I should have gone down to that, dark alley, or as they say, nothing good happens after 2 a.m. in a club on a Friday night or something,
For sure. I had a middle school coach that would tell us that all the time, even though we couldn't go out past 12. He was telling us, like, when you guys get older, don't be stupid and spend all your time after 12. And then, like, as I was saying, that was actually the same coach that would tell us the best way to not to counter a move is to not get into it, right? And, just being smart in the first place keeps you from having to use your muscles and your force and all of those kind of things, which is one of the also things that I teach in my self-defense course in martial arts and everything is just like being smart keeps you from having to use all your muscles and all of your force and all of that. And then, as you were saying, the prevention or the protective, I guess, because, what I also focus when I'm teaching, and everybody wants to focus on the hand that hits the bag. They want to focus on hitting the bag harder, or just everything about the offensive part of your technique, and instead of the hand coming back, right? And so as I hit the bag and when I train and when I throw punches, the thing that I focus most on is the preventative hand and to making sure that I don't get hit, or make sure that I'm not in a position to get taken down or whatever, as that is much more important than being able to hit the opponent harder, right?
That's right, yeah.
Of course, fundamentals, footwork, head movement, everything like that being the not the sexiest or the most exciting part of training, but, getting yourself into position to be able to strike is much more important than having the firepower once you're in position, right?
So if we were to take that and apply it to law enforcement or security personnel that may find themselves in contact with an aggressor or assailant, especially with law enforcement, we have to think of like weapons retention. So the things that you did in the dojo or whatever, and like you're doing this, you're kicking, you're punching, and you have pepper spray and batons and all this. But if you do go to your hands, you have to think, well, okay, I have to protect my weapons here. I have to protect my weapon. So understanding that is like another element, especially with like law enforcement, that they have to be aware of. But as often as the case is, most are drawing anyway, because they may not put so much stock in their own self-defense techniques. So
quick draw McGraw. Yeah, I guess that would be one of the things that I wouldn't think of that, but if we're going to be police officer, if we're going to be a police force and we're going to give you a gun and authorize you to use it, most of the training might be to keep other people from using that against you, right? Or just make sure you're not in a situation at all where that becomes like, if you get to a point where the suspect is wrestling with you and possibly getting your gun,
Yeah.
then you go back to the other things that failed before that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you get close enough to get to your gun, or those kind of things, right? And like, you probably come in and see a lot of people that want to work on non-prevention things or working on power. And I think of also the medical industry, where because I work in health and fitness and deal with a lot of those kind of things, but like the medical industry is not so focused on prevention or anything like that. It's like, here's some powerful surgery, or drug. Like, they escalate very quickly to the most powerful type thing, where if we would focus as a society on preventative health, and preventing violence, preventing people from growing up to be violent and those kind of things, then it would be, if we had that martial artist mindset and we were training in martial arts, then a lot of these things would be kind of obvious, right? Like, like I approach my training: prevention first, safety first, focus on relaxing and not wasting energy, and then possibly add force or power to that, right?
Right. And what people often like, what they see on TV, and or in movies, which may or may not be so realistic, or even to apply to a different sports paradigm, like I say basketball, where they're foregoing, they can have great athleticism, forgo the fundamentals, and just go for that, like a flying slam dunk. Right. So in martial arts, or in Krav Maga, is more of a self-defense system, I would say, than martial art. But some people will be like, okay, I want to do like weapons takeaway. Like the first thing, like, you got to walk before you can run, and there's all these other skill sets that have to be developed and built upon, and then we could address those things. Now, sometimes there are people that in real life, they could be shopkeepers, they could have been held up before, and that's like a real concern. Oh, I want to do this now. But
right.
Still,
sometimes I have people ask about specific techniques, or like, how do I get out of this position? And it's like, wait a minute. You had somebody put you in this, like, with kids, when they get pinned down and they have their arms over their heads, and they're like, they want to know how to get out of that position, or but it would be funny to say, like, I want to work on high level weapons, disarming, but I'm, I've never faced anybody that had a weapon, or I've never been in that situation. So, I think about the movies and the media shaping how people view martial arts and self-defense. And it makes me, it kind of seeing how people take to martial arts can kind of be indicative of what kind of culture they're coming from.
True. You know what I mean? But also, it's like a learning opportunity for many. So some come in with an expectation, oh, it's going to be this, this, and this, and they get their eyes like open, wow, and they learned, and they do become good students and practitioners. But yeah, some people come in with the wrong, or maybe a misguided understanding, or even expectation that they're going to be a badass and and it's like, step back from that. Let's look at why you want to do this, and what you're looking to develop in yourself, and those kind of things.
What would you think would happen in our society in America if we had not to get too political, but if everybody trained Krav Maga and everybody went through this type of tactical training, what kind of difference would you see in our youth, for example, and those kind of things?
Well, I think it would go far to help us develop confidence and physical fitness by default, even resiliency and things like that, and even camaraderie, understanding across people. If it's Krav or any other type of self-defense system, martial art, or even just athletic pursuit, that would be great. And other countries do have that focus. think Germany for many, many years, like all school children did. You did gymnastics, I think run and swim. Those were like your core things from grade school all the way and up through. In America, you have PE, and then things kind of, then school, obviously high school sports and all that stuff. But in terms of a uniform type of approach to things, other countries were really, in China, really proficient at that.
I don't know. I think of like the effect that martial arts training has on society and people as well in general, because I teach a lot of kids. So you get a parent that comes in and you say, what's the result we're going to have from this training? It's like, well, we're going to get them in shape, obviously. We're going to, but the training itself is to make a better person, right? And so, thinking of what type of training makes the best people, right? And you mentioned Germany, they do gymnastics, swimming, and running. I think that's amazing. I think that's a great balance to like thinking of what you have to think as you perform those movements. You have to think balance. You have to be in tune with your whole body. It's neither super intense like, weightlifting or football or force production type of sports, but nor is it like very, it's very active, right? Yeah. So
and those are those core sports there. Yep. We all know Germany, has amazing soccer teams. So, so they started them young. They started them in those, or at least they did. I don't know if they still do, but in those pursuits.
Nice. And so with the Krav Maga training, if somebody was to sign up for Krav Maga training, could they expect to use that as a way to, have you seen people really get in great shape, or is it more so that it's like, I have a newfound confidence and I know how to, stay safe?
Both. We both know from the fitness background, and you feel things internally first, then you see the results in the mirror maybe later. So it's a little of both.
Nice.
Again, it's also how much time you put into it, like anything else. I have clients that train with me in fitness. Some come 3-4 times a week and they're in amazing shape, and you got some once a weekers. So, right. But with Krav, I have to say, because it is so physical and everything, twice a week, 2 classes twice a week, that's fine for some retention. If you want more and you want to go 2 times a day and for a bit, or however many lessons, then on top of that, all the combat conditioning type classes too. That's great. Everyone has their own schedule and goals and what they want out of it.
Yeah, I think of as you're in the Krav Maga training, that the intention is to improve your abilities rather than to achieve a physical result. Yeah. But a lot of times you get people that get huge physical results. In jiu-jitsu, you'll see people that come in and they're a whole nother person when they start, and then they get into it, and they may have gotten into it to lose weight, but they become so into it because it's so much fun to them. It's so interesting that they willingly spend more time doing it. And in the moment, they push themselves harder because they're not thinking of, I'm doing this for physical result and I need to seek pain to get my gains. But, getting into the moment, especially when you're learning, you're not thinking about your physical state. You're thinking about, you have to focus. So I think that's one of the great things about martial arts training, and in Krav Maga specifically, you're picturing yourself in a scenario. And so when your mind goes into that scenario, it's like, well, I'm not thinking about what I did earlier today as I'm imagining myself facing a life and death situation. It's like that's even more focusing, right? That you have an opponent in front of you and you're imagining yourself facing a lethal situation. you know, I think that would be a great aspect of Krav Maga training for sure.
Yeah, and with that, also there's, you know, different, I don't say tiers, but like, you know, there's practicing without, you know, without protection. Let's say, maybe you don't always wear protection, but what I mean is movements or techniques and conditioning drills, and then let's say sparring. So sparring, it's a very important tool to use, and some people do shy away from it. They do everything but the sparring. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to handle a situation out in the street, but sparring does help prepare one for, you know, ultimately if they have to really get down to it.
Absolutely. I used to I take people on those type of like tiers as well, where before we do, like, they want to go in, and a lot of times, and especially with the MMA class, you get somebody that's like, I want to do MMA, and then they want to spar the first day, and I think they want to get beat up, or they want to beat somebody else up. I don't know what their deal is, but you know, they want to go straight to the top level. And I always have people go through the body weight movements. I do a lot of body weight movements in my program, because things get infinitely more complicated when you have an opponent in front of you. There's timing, and you got to think about what they're doing, and they could do anything, and you don't, you know, your pre-programmed plans just go completely out the window, and it just completely falls apart. But how much would you say is in Krav Maga is trainable without a partner? For example, is there any online systems where it's kind of like, do this at home? Is there anything like that?
No.
Yeah.
As someone that spent a lot of time in the tactical world, no. Can you read a book about the history and you see elements of, okay, this type of thing, and kind of think of like the Karate Kid when he's learning from a book here and he's trying to, until Mr. Miyagi, you know, comes by, you know. You know, we're talking physiological response, and you can't get that unless you are opposite someone. And let me just segue into things where something that's like marketed a lot is like women's self-defense classes, which is, you know, very important. We want to empower women to handle themselves. But where certain programs kind of fall short is when it's the women training on women. Okay. All right. And now some may have had experiences where they've had traumatic experience, and they're kind of even nervous having a man like pretend they're choking on them or in a position. And as an instructor, you have to be aware of who those are and how to apply the class in a way. But it's, in a sense, not doing them many favors. I mean, yeah, you're teaching certain movements, but, you know, a 5'2", 110-pound woman practicing a move against a 5'3", 120-pound woman, is that what she's going to face? And God forbid, in a real life situation. You know, so working up that, or I should say, introducing men into the equation, and okay, this is, you know, self-defense is self-defense. Okay. And you know, it's not just sparring, but practicing opposite a multitude of partners. Some are tall, some are short, some are fatter, some are thinner. That's, you know, that's the reality of life in the street. So, you know, though there are like a lot of techniques and things and basic movements you can do, if it's a woman against a woman, just to develop a base level of self-confidence. But introducing, okay, here's an aggressor. And you have to tell him, this is what's going to happen. He's going to hold you like this. Are you comfortable with this? If he tries to do that, and, you know, then you conduct the instructing, you know, from there. But you know, either that, just, you know, my take on it. There's certain classes
I think the levels is very important, right? And realizing what level somebody's at, right? And you wouldn't have a woman face a larger man or like a greater threat or challenge her more than what she would be ready for, right? But like I was saying, the body weight movements, right? If you don't have somebody to practice with, or you've never joined a Krav Maga gym, or if you're having trouble understanding a certain technique, I would teach sometimes some people that when you try to teach them to do the body weight movement without the partner, they have trouble picking it up without the partner, right? So then when the partner is there and complicating things, then it's like they don't even have a chance. If they can't perform this movement on their own with their own body weight, right? And then when the opponent is here and you have to do it with timing, you guys have to kind of work with each other. And then, of course, if you have one of those partners that don't know what they're doing, it just doesn't even work. So a lot of times when I do jiu-jitsu, we'll do the body weight movement over and over again, and then we'll go into working with a partner. But of course, I always opt to, you always have to do it with a partner, right? Like if you don't take it up to actually doing it on a person and escalate it up to that top tier, then you're really not getting the maximal benefit at all. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah. Same here though. Like for certain techniques, we could practice opposite the mirror. This would be like the footwork and practice, and then and build up the intensity with a partner, and then culminating in a crisis drill where I'm sure you've seen these things too, where you spin someone around, or they're throwing punches, you blow a whistle, and they go, and they have to, and then someone attacks them, they're not expecting it, and they have to do the movement or the escape and those kind of things.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah. Because I think about getting people prepared for jiu-jitsu, getting people prepared to go and pursue a martial arts journey. And, a lot of them are just like, well, I'm totally not in shape. I need to do some sort of workout before I go there. That's not really the case. But if they did do, these body weight movements, and they did do the basics and learned the fundamentals before they came into class, that would always benefit them and get them physically prepared. And then also having those motor patterns as well. So, but yeah, I think, especially with Krav Maga and all of the vast different techniques, and, you always want to have an expert there to work with you, and then also have training partners. That's the best way to do it, obviously, right? And, I would say, would you say that there is enough, if there was somebody in a city like, let's say, Indianapolis, for example, where I'm from, if there was somebody in Indianapolis, would it be difficult for them to find, Krav Maga training, or would you say that that there's a shortage of instructors, and maybe they need to look around and really search?
Well, Krav Maga has gotten quite popular over the last even 15 years. Now, again, going back to what I spoke about earlier, there are different associations and federations. I think someone from Indianapolis could definitely find a good Krav Maga studio within the city limits and nearby and all. It just takes some research. Some years ago, there was a Krav Maga organization that was almost handing out certifications, on the street corner. So you could be already a martial arts practitioner or even a black belt. You do a 3-week course, we'll certify you as a Krav Maga instructor. So that diluted a bit, though. So I don't want to name names or anything like that, but
of course, I always tell people to look it up on Yelp, because regardless of somebody's certifications or whatever they have going on as their outer image or whatever's going on, the people that have worked with them are going to tell you the most of how they are as a person, as well as how much expertise they can show in their classes. Would you say the same?
Yep. And not everyone has to be a grizzly veteran and and such things, or even a fighter.
Professional MMA fighter. That doesn't make you a good trainer? I'm just kidding.
It's like,
Because I was a professional fighter, and that didn't make. I knew everything I needed to know about MMA, and like, if you're gonna learn from somebody, you should learn from somebody that knows what they're doing, but also should learn from somebody that knows how to train. And my attitude at the time, and just my understanding of how to teach people, was just not there at all. And so, like, it's another case where you want to learn from professionals, but if you try to learn, if you have to learn from them, then you're maybe limiting yourself. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, like the whole, like, in the tactical world, you see a lot of dudes that impressive military or security backgrounds, the whole been there, seen that, tell war stories, but are horrible instructors and teachers or coaches. Lesson plans, just the fact that they were veterans of something opens their doors, and but don't know how to deliver a lesson, or to have command of a class, and making sure that the novice feels comfortable, and that the seasoned practitioner is not bored, and all those things. So
Yeah. When you're working with an instructor, you got to ask, what are they good at? What have they been good at? And if they're really great at performing the moves or executing the techniques, then that's really great. But what are they good at? Are they good at relating to people and helping them understand? It's a whole nother story. So it's something that I had to, I would have some frustration. It's like, why aren't they learning this move? It's so easy. I taught it exactly how it's done. That's exactly how I do it. But then they don't get it. They suck, But, obviously I had some, and that's another thing, like with martial arts, can be revealing to a lot of your personal behavioral imbalances or preferences, I guess I could say. But like, and again, working and teaching with people, that's very educational to me especially when I started teaching kids. Because when you start teaching kids and you're not making sense to them and you get boring, they're just like, contact, let's look down, away from where this guy is just going on and on. So that's definitely been very helpful. How has teaching in Krav Maga and in the martial arts industry, how do you think that has changed you?
In terms of relating with a huge cross section of people, and I've always been I've always been a people person, and I've lived in diverse areas and come across a lot of people of all walks of life. And I also even put in like fitness into the equation too, with some of my clientele, who are just like fitness clients. It's in terms of communicating and really listening. You become a better listener when you're an instructor. You think, okay, you're just talking. No, you have to become a really good listener. And so that's one of the good takeaways that I've gotten as an instructor, is really understanding how to listen, and then like, aha, that is why they do this or that, or that's what's really important to them is this. And then you make those either adjustments or points that or push on those triggers to get that person in a certain direction.
Nice. That's a good one. Listening is even in martial arts, and a lot of beginners have it in their, like, they'll have it in their head, I'm going to do this move. I don't care what the opponent's doing. I'm not paying attention to the opponent at all. And if I can't get the move, then I'll put more energy into it, right? But listening to the other person and being empathetic and thinking about what they want, it's a huge part of martial arts, and applying your techniques, and like being able to hit the bag as hard as you can or whatever. But if you don't understand what the opponent is doing, or you're not in tune or in touch with their desires, then you're really kind of spinning your wheels, I guess. But
like with tactical fitness, or I call tactical performance. And so I'm writing a book on improving tactical performance, and I looked at like 10 elements that, for the first responders, like how do they improve? And so we look at like physical fitness is one, and then
So the 10 principles of which they, in general, focus on to improve performance for first responders.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So
what are those? Can you give us a quick overview of the top, or you don't have to give, if you want people to get the book.
I kind of rattle off all 10 off the top of my head, but
okay. What do you think is one that surprises a lot of people?
Bad habits. Like, for example, obviously smoking, drinking, addicted to even too much caffeine. So that's like that can hamper if you have to stand post for so many hours, or if you're on patrol or something. You're like, oh my gosh, I need a cigarette, like, and now you're concentrated on having a smoke, or you're crashing because of poor nutrition, or you're crashing because of like just so addicted to so many Red Bulls or something. That can affect your performance, as with those other elements.
Yeah, so like people's everyday living habits, they're not living the martial artist lifestyle. And then when it comes time to perform as a martial artist, they're unable to do it. No matter how much training they do, you smoke or you have bad habits, those non-martial artists qualities will improve or affect your performance. So how do I guess just that would be a big one. Just how do professionals in the field improve upon that? Discipline.
It's those like hidden dangers, because there's a lot of macho aggro behavior, especially they say on a SWAT team. Okay, so physically fit. If they've done a lot of training too. Okay, they're trained with their gear. Like these are all elements I'm talking about. There's people that do training, but if it's an emergency situation, now you have to put on 40 pounds of gear. Have you trained with your gear? And your environment, night, daytime, cold, rainy, dry, all that.
So not necessarily even bad habits. They could just be habitual behaviors that now when things change make you less adaptable.
Right. So the bad habits are just one other element. So, when you tell someone that risks their life on a daily basis, you run into a burning building multiple times a day or whatever in a week, and they tell them, hey, you lay off the cigarettes, or put down the bottle here. Sometimes that's a challenge with alpha dog mentalities, but I guess this is just it's a matter of just showing them the lights, so to speak, of like, look, your teammates are relying on you to be at your best, so don't do anything that would hamper that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny to think of somebody that's like doing the little things for their health and for their longevity, but it wouldn't really necessarily be for that. It would be like you need to do every little thing that you need to in order to be at your top performance, right? It's not about living longer and longevity and whatever else goes along with those bad habits that you want to prevent. It's more about doing every little thing that you possibly can in your life to become the best that you can be, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, it's even with like competitive athletes and those kind of things, and you can get into those things don't matter. For me, it was a lot of different, for example, flexibility or just different things that I engaged in that I didn't think mattered, but they were all different habits that just did not lead to an improvement, and other things that you rely upon that may not be there for you in the future. So that's very interesting. Is there another one that you think is surprising or very, very overlooked?
It's more the emotional side. So again, specific to, I should say, well, if you look at trust, So like trust in the telecommunications, trust that you have the right intelligence before you go into to breach a door for a hostage rescue or something, or going after a high value target. And then the team, I call team dynamic. Like let's say your teammate, your teammate's going through a bad divorce. He's talking. You may be distracted, and that like you're thinking now. Okay, I hope Bob has his game face on today. His mind's not somewhere else because this is real important. What we're about to do. Those are those type of things where the psychology of the operators is quite important, and that's like one of those hidden pitfalls that could undermine an operation or police or fire activity or anything.
How would you say that people go about identifying those negative qualities and improving them?
Well, overall, most of those professionals are professional, and they compartmentalize any of their external things and do their job. Sometimes they don't, and that's why it's important that particular agencies or units have that support for, if it's police or military or fire, and like that have to deal with some external things, that they have an outlet to deal with it, and not just suck it up and have it consume them, and then it comes out. Just we see that unfortunately a lot with law enforcement. They do have a very dangerous job. They may not know what's on the side of that wall, but that there could be some real repressed feelings. And then it could be an aggressor or something. They go a little bit too hard, and then boom, you have a situation on your hand. So
for sure, as a sports psychologist, is needing to make sure that you're not internalizing any of the external things in your world and bringing that into work. I guess, especially the better that people are at disguising it, and because a lot of times it's just like, something's not right. You got to suck it up, Buttercup, and so then you get into that always over again and again and again and again, and you keep on burying it and not really digging into it and letting it out. But I guess being aware of your vulnerability and spending time, I guess, like discussing it would be one of those main things that a lot of tougher professionals are affected by, you would say?
Yeah, about as I would even say, like you have a safe space, if you will. And that safe space could be some closed forum where they're discussing the issues with the job with some others, and then that's all that's needed. That kind of going away from the tactical here in a bit, but it's still nonetheless an element that that needs to be addressed at times, or sometimes comes up, and there should be a resource for those professionals that put themselves in harm's way like all the time. That's their job, and
right. Yeah, I guess the being too tough, being too masculine, training to that's among the things where people aren't looking for that balance. This is one of the things that I ran into in my training, where I was just seeking all force, being on the one side of it, I guess you could call tiger style or whatever, without any dragon style or that kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely see as like embracing the softer, or the you could say more feminine or more emotionally aware side of things being a huge part that's often ignored with a lot of fighters and martial artists, but actually being able to make very, very big differences. Like when I noticed that imbalance, I was like, oh, I've been trying to force my way through everything all the time. It had a huge effect on my regular life and everything that I do in my regular life. But then I started, so it was both like my emotional state in my normal life affecting my training and my performance, and then realizing that and then admitting to my weaknesses and admitting to those vulnerabilities as being like a huge step in making me a better fighter. So that's very interesting. Do you have one more?
Okay.
Good. Well, first of all, what's your book called?
Well, it's not yet published. Like Improving Tactical Performance is one of the titles I'm just working on.
Okay. But it'll be on your website when it's ready. Yeah. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Greg. This has been an awesome interview. Really opened my eyes to a lot of different things, even though I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I've been around and I've learned a lot from you. So I really appreciate it. And I think you're an amazing person. I could always, when I first met you, I could tell like this guy is humble, but a lot of times you can tell when somebody knows their stuff. And I definitely, you carry yourself with that at all times. So again, thank you for bringing your expertise, as I say, not as you say, but your expertise in helping us all understand more about what it is you do and how that is helping the world. So thanks again. And is there anything you want to tell us about your business, where people can find you or anything like that?
Oh, sure. For those interested on the, let's say, on the fitness, and I put tactical fitness / Krav element to that. Battle Tested Fitness is the name of my fitness business. I'm based in Sunnyvale. And the parent company is Battle Tested Solutions, which is more on the security consulting, but my training division is focused on tactical fitness, Krav. I use another facility for my Krav clientele, and I'm on. You can find me at battletestedfitness.com, or if you have your security concerns, battletestedsolutions.com too. So that's where people can find me.
Perfect. Very good. All right. Again, thank you very much. You're awesome. Glad to have had you. And guys, anybody watching this channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you sign up. I'm going to be interviewing a lot of different people, fitness professionals, fighting professional fighters, and people in the fitness martial arts industry. One of my interviews, I'm going to be interviewing some professors and some more people on the academic side to bring more clarity to the fitness world. And so stay tuned, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.